Good morning. My name is Adrienne Ackerley, and I'm your host today. To help us avoid any unnecessary background noise, may I ask, if you have not already done so, please enter your audio pin that you will find on the right side of your screen. You simply press the pound sign, then the number listed, and then the pound sign again directly into your phone. Or you can simply hit your mute button on your phone. Welcome to today's webinar. This webinar is geared to take approximately 40 to 45 minutes, as we know that your time is valuable. Once we have completed, we will open it up to a short Q&A section, so please hold your questions until then, or if you want, you can simply type them in on the right side of your screen. If you notice, on the right side of your screen, you have a GoToMeeting panel. About 3/4 of the way down, there is a chat box. Feel free to type in any questions as you think of them right in there, and we will address them at the end of the webinar. Mark Stillman is a co-founder of Energy Engine, as well as the president of Energy Edge Advisory Group, a management consulting firm which provides a broad range of services to participants in the downstream energy space. Mark is a student of the energy industry who continually studies the changing dynamics of this exciting marketplace to help position dealers and technology vendors for the future. Mark has a broad professional background with specialties in strategic planning, finance, product hedging, and executive management. Through these webinars, we all hope to shed a fresh perspective on the emerging challenges facing our industries, stimulate a meaningful dialogue, and sometimes even challenge the conventional thinking of attendees. Mark, over to you.
Thank you, Adrienne. Good morning, everyone. I really appreciate you taking your time out to hear our webinar this morning. We hope to provide something of value that you can take away. I would like to apologize in advance. I'm getting over a little cold that my young daughter was kind enough to give me, so hopefully my voice can make it through here. If not, actually, I'm going to be working with John Vrabel today for this webinar. We're both going to be handling parts of the presentation. John is also one of the co-founders with Adrienne, who you just heard speaking. They're the real co-founders. They brought me in a little bit later, but I appreciate the title. But John has been running the Energy Engine business now for a decade, but he and Adrienne ran the largest e-commerce fuel oil and propane business ever to be created in terms of an online business with close to 80,000 customers back in the early to mid 2000s. The important part of that is that John is really the expert in fuel e-commerce, not because he's my business partner, but I doubt anyone knows more about online engagement for fuel customers, both heating oil and propane, than John does. He'll be handling the end of the presentation, kind of walking you through some real world numbers and impacts of what this type of customer technology can do for your business and what it's done for some of your compatriots in the industry who have adopted it. So we'll get to that point in a minute. This Take the Call Out of Will Call, kind of a kitschy name. I'll take credit for that, whether that's infamous or famous, who knows. This is part of a long series we've been doing about will call fuel oil and will call propane. I don't want you to think that this is just a fuel oil conversation, because will call obviously permeates both industries. And we have a product which we're not going to talk about because we're not in the sales mode today, but a good e-commerce product should be able to do both heating oil and propane, even commercial fuels. The series, and this is not bragging, this is just reality. The series that we've done here, both on our own and with several of our partners in the industry, have put really large numbers of people on them. And again, I'm not universally loved. I'm not the smartest guy in the room. It's about the topic. Will call has always been a strange, nearly controversial topic in the industry. The three of us are from the industry, so we're not outsiders pretending we know this. We lived it. And it's really taken on a new meaning. The whole advent of e-commerce, internet shopping, and a changing consumer has brought will call back to the forefront. And I think the reason that we get a lot of people on these webinars is simply because there's an interest in it. There's a lot of folks who want to know more about what's happening and why it's happening, because there's confusion. There's also a lot of skeptics out there, and I don't blame you. Will call is an interesting and oddball topic. It can be hotly debated over drinks anytime with anybody. Just put two dealers in a room and let them have it, go at it. But I think there are skeptics out there who are also saying, I wonder if there's a different way to skin this cat. And then there's a group of people out there that likes to argue and debate, which is great. Believe me, if anybody of you come to my public speaking engagements, you've seen pretty solid arguments on this topic. But I guess which leads me to my greatest sort of pretext to this morning, and then I'll jump in here. We are not, as a company, endorsing will call. We are not hoping will call grows. We are not making will call happen in COD. It's a reality and inevitability in this industry. It's always been there. It's growing simply because of the way consumers are behaving. But we don't want to come across as endorsers of will call. We're trying to provide expertise and solutions around something that's there that nobody really created. It created itself, and a better way to engage the business, to try to cut your costs, to reduce the headaches that you have with this group of customers, and then ultimately to make these customers happy, because as you'll see in a minute, will call customers today are a lot different than they used to be. Trying to get my slides to move here. So sort of what we're trying to do today really quickly is how do you attract and service this new breed, because it is really a different will call customer we're dealing with. Whenever you put the word attracting and will call, and a customer or dealer will certainly scratch their head. We'll talk about why that's not as dangerous and risky as it used to be. Using e-commerce tools, again, the central thesis of today is not to get people on the telephone. The biggest problem with will call, and what's driven us nuts, is how disruptive they are to your phone team, and then ultimately to your operations team. They're very, very tactile and high maintenance, and the phone is not the place to deal with them. We're going to talk about cost savings. That feels self-evident, but the numbers probably will surprise you. We're going to talk a lot about online engagement and customer success. I have a fascination with the topic of customer success. I don't know about you, but I'm sick of hearing about customer service and customer support and customer experience and customer journey mapping. It's all interesting, but customer success is probably the most important component of that, but the least talked about, maybe because it doesn't sound really sexy. You know, customer success, as we see it and as other pundits in other industries see it, is really about a beneficial relationship that serves the needs of not just the customer. It's not always the customer is always right. It's the beneficial, mutually beneficial relationship that also helps the dealer, right? If the customer is going to be successful, the dealer also has to be successful. The problem with will call in the past is the customer was typically successful, but the dealer was unsuccessful, which probably explains our hatred of this customer group. We're talking about sort of ongoing relationships with customer success, really good outcomes for the customer and the dealer. So a lot of that will be woven into today. And then John's going to go through some real world experiences. So first and foremost, what are we talking about here? So very quickly, I'm going to try to burn through my content as context and let John jump in. We know that there's a customer out there that is very hard to pin down, nearly impossible to please and understand, who seems to be a moving target. And it's not just fuel, it's everybody. Every industry out there is dealing with a new consumer that they're having a difficult time getting in sync with. Some industries are doing a better job than others. But this whole digital revolution, and when you think about digital revolution, it's simply the fact that there's a lot of consumer technology. There's a lot of websites out there, Lyft, Uber, Amazon, LL Bean, we use them all the time. That revolution has created a new consumer because what it's done is provided them massive amounts of knowledge, massive amounts of self-learning. They don't need to talk to anybody to learn about you anymore. Massive amounts of input on other customers' experiences, endless choices for competitors. And I think, also important to know for you marketing geeks out there that the digital revolution has created a new consumer. A lot of it's because our attention span is being drained constantly. Facebook, text, email, work. Our phones are blowing up constantly. So we have a consumer who has endless choices, very different expectations, a lot of power now, but also massively distracted. So the customer is hard to reach, hard to engage, and almost ambivalent at times, but you're going to have to get used to it, because if you look in the mirror, you're looking at your customer. We all behave the same way. We demand self-service. We want to be in control. That almost feels like a cliche at this point, but that's really, really important because our industry has really built itself on full service, premium service, engaged service, and we like to control. A lot of the stuff that we've done in our industry, and I'll say us because I'm in it, was to control that relationship. Consumers don't like that anymore. So we have a lot to adjust to. They want to be interactive online. Taking a payment online or whatever is not enough. They want to be communicated with. They want it personalized. They want you to know them online. They want to be able to do everything they do and more with a CSR online, especially when it comes to ordering fuel, which is a lifeblood of their security and comfort in their home. Important to know that the reason this customer is confusing for us is that, I'll get rid of that. Is that the bar is being set by other industries. It's not being set by your competitors anymore. It's not just the guys and girls running companies in your territory that are setting the bar. It is Amazon, Lyft, Uber, all the people I mentioned, Google, you name it, right? TurboTax, online college courses. People are saying, if I can do all of these things online, why is it that I can't engage my fuel company that way? Online. And I'm not saying a blanket statement that some of you aren't doing a good job with this, but as an industry, we know that we're not doing a great job of some of this. But when the bar is being set by people like Amazon and Uber, it's tough to reach for it. But consumers are homogenizing everything. They don't see really that many differences in their relationships with businesses anymore. So if you fail to keep up, then you kind of look like a dinosaur. You add all this up, you have a changing consumer dynamic, a changing world with a lot of consumer technology, endless choices, endless amounts of knowledge, endless amounts of control and freedom, and that is what's driving the increase in will call. We know these numbers are going up. Our advisory firm deals with dozens and hundreds of dealers all the time, and we know that this is happening. We know that in some markets, that is over 50% of total volume consumed, not your customer base. I don't want anybody to misinterpret my number. In some cases, it's less than that, but in some cases, it's more. If you go to Metro Boston, around 128, dealers will tell you that they believe that it's more like 60%. People in Maine might tell you the same thing. So we know that those numbers are growing, but it's not exactly an area that we want to see grow, but it's just happening and we have to accept it. This cute little slide was designed by my daughter, and I've never found graphics that were better to explain how we feel about automatic and will call. So I leave it there. This used to be a debate slide. I used to have different titles for this slide, how to pick a fight, yada, yada, but really it's not a debate anymore. Automatic and will call customers, listen, we love automatic customers, but the value of will call customers, the number of them, the number that's likely to be there in the next 5 or 10 years, we kind of have to start to reevaluate how we're valuing a will call customer, because it's changed and it's forever changed, and there's lots of reasons why that has happened. And again, some of this might seem obvious. Some of you obviously are probably smarter than me and have done this sort of thinking and research, but it bears talking about because it's a little provocative and it's an interesting view. Will call and COD, if you close your eyes and think about that, if I close my eyes and think about that when I first came in the industry in the early to mid 90s, I wasn't born and raised. I came here accidentally, but I've been here for a long time and I'll be sticking around for a bit. If I close my eyes and think about will call and COD, I had the same vision that you have, right? 420 FICO score, they want 50 gallons, they have a pit bull at the gate, the driver shows up, nobody's there. You know, the profile goes on and on. But that's not really who they are anymore. We have to change that thinking. It would be like Amazon thinking that mail order customers were junk business, because mail order, to those of you who are my age in your 50s, that was a junky way of doing business, but it's not. Now it's the way to do business. So internet shopping, speaking of that, so will call has changed because the customer who's doing will call now is mainstream. It's you, it's me, it's a firefighter, teacher, doctor, lawyer, name anybody. Will call rosters now sort of encompass everybody. It's almost as if, not almost, it is a mainstream fuel customer who's just choosing a different way to go with you. Low-end relationships are cool. I kind of like that line. Because again, we used to all be sort of programmed to want premium, high service relationships. And now we can do everything low end, and we like it. We like the convenience, we like the ease, we like to be in control, we like the better deal, we like to pick and choose what parts of a value proposition we want from somebody we're doing business with. And we don't mind having a low end relationship. We like to have less interaction, more web contact, and be in control of that situation. That's a really important thing because will call is a low end relationship, right? But now you have people looking for low end relationships. Demographics totally changed. I always use this example. If anybody is on the call for second or third time, I apologize for the story, but it's a good one. I live in central New Hampshire in the mountains. It's really cold here. I have heating oil. I have propane. I use a ton of fuel. And even though I run an e-commerce company with partners, I am a full service customer. Whatever my local provider, who you would know the name, very proud, local New Hampshire company, independent, whatever they have to offer, I buy it. I don't want to know anything. I don't want to do anything. So my neighbor, retired pediatricians, 2 of them from Boston, they make a sport out of it. They like web-based shopping for their fuel. They like to understand a really good website. They like to have a good price. It's almost like a little bit of a sport to them. And we have a good chuckle over glasses of wine now and then about why I would ever buy full service and pay all that extra money. And I try to explain it to them, but they don't want to listen. So if they're buying will call and buying online, then that's an indication that that market has changed. There's too many of them. Like I said, in some markets, we're talking 50% of the demand. There's a lot of COD companies out there that we used to call rusty truckers or one truck wonders, and we laugh at them and make fun of them. But some of those companies have gotten huge because they've capitalized on a growing part of the market. That's business you could have, right? If you chose to do it. If you break that sort of mindset of thinking that will call is crap and think of it again as an opportunity for growth, then you will have the potential to move gallons up and do it in a profitable way. These customers are loyal. John will talk about that in a moment. You'd be shocked at how loyal our customers are on the will call COD e-commerce side, rivaling very close to the numbers for full service customers and loyal. They're not just one order folks. These people stick around. Online e-commerce tends to hook them. It's a hybrid, like I said. These are mainstream customers, but they're disruptive, right? They're a pain in the ass. Hope there's no kids on the phone. They're blowing up the phones. You know, last winter, the winter before this past winter was an example of how will call can really be disruptive when you're on the rivet and pushing really hard in cold weather. So how do you deal with these folks? Well, we know the phone is a bad idea. The phone's a bad idea because it's disruptive operationally, but the phone is a bad idea philosophically. The phone-based businesses are gone. They just don't exist anymore. If recent research, Forrester research, 2/3 of consumers only want to use the phone for emergencies or when your online system breaks down. So customers don't want to use the phone. They don't even want to use email anymore. I just went to a conference because I work in venture capital quite a bit, and they were saying if you don't have text and you're still working in email, you're over. So the world is moving really, really fast. But this is a phone, we have a phone-based business, right? The fuel business has been historically a phone-based snail mail business. And we need to move away from that and find ways to get people online. Because if you're on the phone and your business is based on the phone, you know, you're out of sync with customers. It's really expensive to be on the telephone versus the web. And you're wasting time. You could have your team, especially the CSRs. We have clients whose CSR teams now work completely on growth initiatives. Very few phone calls coming into the office other than service requests. And they're working on just things that are more important strategically to the business than dealing with a bunch of will call orders and junk phone calls. I mean, if we're, you know, if I text my kid all day long at school, I'm you know, texting everybody I know, you're texting your wives and husbands. If we're doing that, then that's pretty good indication we don't want to be on the telephone. We don't have time for it. So the phone has to go, and that moves people online. And that always stirs the following debate, right? I used to sit in presentations in this industry. This was really hot back around like 2010, 11, 12, 13, when The industry was under a lot of pressure. Demand was sort of eroding both in heating oil and propane. And there was a lot of presentations about how we are basically inoculated from all these forces. We're the last milkmen. Our customers see us differently than everybody else. We have intimate relationships. We'll never be affected by that. We are not inoculated for that. I'm sorry, and if you want to call me up and argue with me about that, you can. Consumers are consumers. We are not the last milkmen. I don't want to be the last milkman, and I don't want you guys and girls to be the last milkmen. Our customers, you know, they don't like being told what to do, how to engage you, what's available, what's not. They don't like buckets. The whole concept of will call and automatic, those two binary buckets, is repellent to a lot of customers. Look at some of the research that was done by Nora and Warm Thoughts. You'll see that peppered throughout. There's a lot of frustration amongst fuel customers with the dealers in the industry at large. You know, web-based commerce is where it's at. It's where your customers want you to be, but it has to be smart. And again, there's no pride in being the last milkman. If anybody knows the story of milkmen, what killed milkmen, which is what I don't want to kill you, is self-service. Back in the 60s, it became safe and easy to get milk from far away with lots of choices. I can get it from far away. It's pasteurized. I don't have to worry about it. You don't need to deliver it to my house anymore. I don't want to pay for that anymore. It's a pain in my butt. I'll go to the supermarket and I'll get it self-service. Self-service killed the milkmen. We don't want to see self-service kill the fuel industry because we can't adapt to a consumer technology. So the call is the problem, right? This is what drives us nuts about will call. If you think about it, it's not the gallons, it's not even the customer so much, it's the call. It's the triggering of the sequence of events. First of all, it's around $6 to $10. We've worked with a lot of dealers to vet this out. That's not just the call part, it's the poor CSR calling dispatch calling the driver. Can you pull a truck off route? What do we do? Do we wait 2 days? Do we wait 3 days? Do we put rules in place? It's an expensive phone call. Will call is expensive. The driver has to sit there and wait. It blows up your delivery performance, and that's even more costly. So the call is the problem. It's disruptive. It's expensive. It kills your margin. These are typically lower volumes. In some cases, they are, you know, even some of these customers are getting terms. I see people giving terms to will call customers. I may shake my head. The AR is expensive, but it's expensive. And the thing is they're going to call, right? None of your will call, automatic customers call. This is the cool thing, right? So you built a system in which your automatic customers do not call you. That's great. Will call customers will call. They have to. So you're actually, as you grow your will call business, if you're pushing them onto your telephone system, because there's a lot of gallons out there, and I see people doing it every day, you push them onto your phone system, you're increasing your cost in almost exponential way. So get them off the phone, right? Cut your cost and grow, repeat it, do it profitably. You got to get them off the telephone, right? We're moving your automatic customers off the phone. There's lots of great portals out there. This will call business can easily be served online with e-commerce in a really smart, really brand building way, really sophisticated way that can make you a little mini Amazon in your market, whether you're a heating oil dealer or whether you're a propane dealer who has a lot of will call, right? Most propane dealers have 50, 60% will call in some cases, not all. They're calling in, give them a place to go, to do that, to pay, to set it all up. It really, really takes the burden off of your business. So e-commerce is what we're going to talk about. I'm going to turn this over to John now. E-commerce is going to reinvent your vision of will call. It's going to remodel your business. You're going to do it self-service online. It's going to be innovative. We're going to attract these new customers. We're going to do it very inexpensively. The cost of acquisition for an e-commerce customer is about $65 versus probably $600 for a full-service customer. It's fractional. You're going to build digital relationships. It's what your customers want. It's not about just taking a payment or an order. You have to communicate with them. A good e-commerce system can do that, and you're going to reduce your fulfillment costs. If you think about taking phone and AR and payment collection out of the cost structure of your business, those are all very expensive things, and the margin reduction is somewhere around 10 or 12 cents. A lot of information. But above all, what we're trying to do here is get you in sync with what your customers are getting elsewhere. Currently, it feels out of sync to them. Again, don't rely on me. Look at the research. It's touchless. What John's going to talk about here, I'm going to flip it to him, is that e-commerce is powerful because that customer, from the moment they learn about you online to the moment they get a delivery, it's touchless. Everything is automated. Costs are driven down. Phone traffic is driven down. Gallons go up. Everything that you need to engage a customer, every tool they need to be successful to get the outcome that they want is in an e-commerce system. Zero phone calls. We have companies that are delivering 7 to 8 million gallons of fuel who never take a phone call. It's the two owners and one young woman in the office managing the e-commerce system. It can be done very, very easily. So what is a winning e-commerce strategy? Think about this a little bit. No calls. John's going to talk about how to be competitive, convenient, how to communicate, how to connect. E-commerce is complicated on some level because it's forcing you to communicate in a medium that is not tactile in face-to-face or phone-to-phone. So you have to be sharper, and you have to have a really good marketing person, a really good strategy in place to get it done. So with that, I'm going to flip it to John. He's going to talk about the real-world impact of what this will call customers doing and how engaging them online actually works well. We have lots and lots of customers and case studies. We're not talking about this in a theoretical way. And John is the keeper of the library. So John, off to you for some impact surveys. John?
Did John possibly have himself on mute?
Possible. Well, John is. Well, that's going to be challenging. Anyway, I guess I'll have to take it from here and try to get through what we were going to talk about with these impact slides. Oh, so you have him muted, Adrian. That's what John just said. John, just click your phone icon and you should be unmuted.
John, you have to put in your audio pin to be unmuted. John, can you hear me now? Now I can hear you.
Can you hear me? Ah, great. All right. Sorry about that, everyone.
You made the dramatic pause, Vrabel. You nailed the dramatic pause.
Oh my gosh, that was a little bit heart pounding for a moment. Adrian accuses me sometimes of not being muted and making background noise. So Adrian, good job keeping me muted, no background noise, but you didn't get me either. So anyway, I apologize for the pregnant pause, folks. Mark, thank you for the upfront. One of the things about our business is that we operate it very much as a fact-based business. So like you just heard Mark say, we're not talking about theories here. We're not talking about best guesses in terms of what we think might happen or how the business operates. We are in fact a fact-based business. Mark, if you could flip to the next slide. And with that in mind, what we don't want to do is we don't want you to take our word for it. So we wanted to provide some numbers, some case studies with real life clients and some of their experience that actually goes to the heart of e-commerce and what it can do for your business. So what we're going to look at today is real dealers, real data, and actually fact-based studies to give you a good feel for exactly what happens. And we're going to go through them pretty quickly, but we're going to talk about 3 different categories. We're going to talk about, from the customer perspective, how using e-commerce, these clients have wound up with engaged customers who are loyal and happy to do business with them. I'm a consumer packaged goods marketer. Although I've been in the energy industry for better than 25 years now, I started my career as a consumer packaged goods marketer. And as a consumer packaged goods marketer, if you don't think first and foremost in every decision that you make about your consumer first, you're not going to last very long. All the decisions are based upon the consumer. And what you're going to see in these case studies are your colleagues in the industry that are employing a lot of those consumer packaged goods marketing type of techniques where they're thinking about the consumer. If I make this decision in my business, how does it impact my consumer? So we'll talk about engaged, loyal, and happy customers. We're going to talk about case studies with how do you measure growth? And this, some of the answers, some of the ways that this is being done just might in fact surprise you. And the last area we're going to talk about is acquiring customers or companies. And I just read, I was reviewing some of the Gray and Gray survey data just earlier this week. And better than 50% of you, whether or not you're a heating oil dealer, a propane dealer, or a hybrid, are considering acquisitions as a growth strategy. So with that in mind, this becomes an important topic about acquiring customers, or is there another way to do it? Can you just take them? Well, we'll see in a case study. All right, so let's start with engaged, loyal, and happy customers. Here's what we have seen. This first bullet says the fuel customers' preference for online engagement. You heard Mark talk about that. He talked about the percentage that prefers not to use the phone unless it's just an emergency or their e-commerce channel breaks down. So I'm going to talk about two different companies that kind of illustrate this. We know from research that greater than 80% of consumers prefer to buy online. So that's kind of the flip side of what Mark said, that they really don't want to be on the phone. The alternative is they really want to be online, at least the vast majority of them. So two companies. The first company, it's a New Jersey-based company, started working with us, or I first met them about 7 years ago. They were small at that point. Matter of fact, they had just recently entered the industry as a dealer. And we don't see a lot of new dealers popping up in the industry today, but they were one of them. When I first met them, they had somewhere around 250 customers. And the owner said to me when we first met, I'm intrigued with what you guys are doing. And he said, I want to build this business as a 100% online business. I really don't want to take telephone calls. I want everybody to go to the internet, place their orders, and we'll be real good at delivering those orders. So 7 years later, he has proven just that. That dealer, who when I first met them, they had a couple of trucks. Like I said, 250 customers. So you were really talking about one of those trucks running all the time, the other one running when they needed it. They were thinking about buying truck number 3 because they were optimistic about their growth. Today they have better than 8,000 customers, and they went from those 2 trucks to about 11, and most of those are tandems. And they're delivering better than 5 million gallons worth of online business. And you heard Mark talk about some of our clients that are able to do business with maybe one person in the office. They're doing that volume online with one lady full-time in the office and a part-time person, and that's it. I mean, that includes all the functions. There's no AR. There's no one doing any other type of administrative functions. It's that 1+. And then one of the owners themselves is in the office periodically for some of the other management and administrative tasks. So quite a growth story in an industry that we know, we struggle to find growth. The other company I'll mention, and this talks about, really goes to the heart of, are these customers willing to go online? And are they engaged? Are they happy? Are they loyal? This company is a New York-based company. And one of the things about this company is that they really want to drive their customers and even existing phone will call customers to the internet, because they realize that it's less disruptive to their business. They've seen it in action. But it really kind of hit me, and it was 2 winters ago, if you recall, a cold snap that we got right after the holidays and continued well into the end of January. Everybody was running at capacity plus, couldn't take any new customers, although other people were calling because they couldn't get delivery from their existing company and so forth. And what this company did at that point was they put a nice recording on their phones that said, hey, we're out there busy trying to get fuel to our customers. We apologize that we can't answer the phones. It's all hands on deck sort of thing. But please go to our website and you can place your order there. You can do everything online. Now, normally people are trying to call because in this particular case, like Mark described, something's not working for them. It's an emergency. Customers went online and they did everything that they wanted to. They had 0 complaints from customers that had said, I tried to get through to you. And it was more the nature of the message that they left there. It was professional. It was understanding. It explained the situation that everybody was in at that point, and they were trying to do the best for all of their customers. So customers can't argue with that. They realize it's going on. All they have to do is look out their window and see how hard it is for a delivery to be made to their house or get up their driveway, that sort of thing. 0 complaints. And that company, during that season, during that winter, also acquired better than 2,000 new customers. And they did the same thing in the most recent year as well. Better than 2,000 customers per year. Certainly explains that customers are willing to go online. When you engage with them, they become loyal, and they also are happy to do business with you. So that's fuel customers. Let's go to the next 2 bullets, and I'm going to combine the next 2 bullets: the percentage of winter fuel consumption and loyalty rates, because they're related. So let me start with loyalty rates. We've historically thought about the will call customers as not being very loyal. They'll buy from you when you have the best price. Next time they need a delivery, they'll shop around to half a dozen or a dozen different competitors. Whoever has the best price, they'll buy from them. That is no longer the case with this new will call customer that Mark talks about. Certainly not an e-commerce customer if you're engaging with that customer. What we started tracking these 2 metrics just a few years ago. And what I'm talking about here is not an individual client that we have, but our overall network of clients, because we track metrics for our entire network, so we can share it with our network so that everybody has the benchmarks to work from, and consequently they raise the bar year over year, because they know through the metrics how high is up. So in terms of loyalty rates, we consistently now, and this has been growing over the last several years. We started tracking both of these, like I said, just a couple of years ago, or I guess it's about 3, maybe 4 years ago now we started tracking. We consistently see loyalty rates in the 70% range across the entire network. And then in our best practices groups, they are now tickling 80%. So you heard Mark say loyalty rates that are approaching full service levels. They absolutely are. Those customers are loyal. And when you have loyal customers, it also impacts the customer's ability to provide referrals to you. So happy customers equal more referrals, and we are now seeing as our clients recognize how loyal those customers are, that they are actively asking them for their referrals. And in a true e-commerce platform, you should have a completely automated referral system, a family and friends type of system. More and more of those clients are using the family and friends referral system, and they're now acquiring. Matter of fact, I looked before this presentation at our most recent numbers, and we're having clients that are acquiring better than 500 customers per year just from referrals alone. So it's really getting meaty in terms of the number of customers that are coming through referrals. So let's go back to this other metric, the percent of winter fuel consumption, because it's important that we look at those together, because a loyalty rate simply measures somebody that bought from you last year that comes back and buys from you again the current year, right? So somebody could buy one order from you last year, they come back, they buy one order from you this year, but you're not getting very much of their business. That's where percentage of winter fuel consumption comes into play. This is also a number that we've seen creeping up the last several years. Across our entire network, that percentage of winter fuel consumption has now exceeded 75%. Okay, so 75% of everything that customer is buying during the course of the year, they're buying from the client. So it's indicating they are being loyal, but they're also buying the majority of their fuel there. That 75% is a little bit understated because these companies are also growing quickly, and we'll talk about growth in the next slide. They're also growing quickly, so if they were just dealing with static customers, that percentage would be even higher. But if you have a customer that buys from you the first time in February or March, obviously they don't have the opportunity to buy 100% of their volume from you that particular year. So that 75% is a good solid number. In our best practices group, which is our top 10% of our client base, that number, get this, that number is 96%. So absolutely at or possibly greater than full service customers. So let's go down to bullet point number 4, charitable causes and community involvement. How does that play into loyal, happy, engaged customers? A couple of quick things. 3 different companies. What this all boils down to is making emotional connections with your customer by the way you position your business in the marketplace. Case study number 1. A company that we have that bases their entire e-commerce business is around philanthropy. It's a charity-based business. So they donate so many cents per gallon to a charity that the buyer, that the customer chooses every time they get heating oil. They do this 12 months a year. They've been doing it consistently probably for 8, 9, 10 years now. It's been that long. That particular company runs in the high 70% in terms of loyalty, in terms of their loyalty rate. In fact, all of these case studies in this particular group are all in the upper 70% range. Because people feel that connection. They feel that connection to that cause, whether it's the Cancer Society, whether it's Wounded Warriors, whatever it is, that they're selecting as the charity that they want their money to go to. They have a connection to that cause, some of them very passionately about that cause. So charitable causes work. Obviously, not all of us can base our business around charities, nor may it make sense for us to be able to do that. So another case study is a propane company. It's a matter of fact, it's a pure propane company, and they wound up by accident, actually, but it worked, finding a mothers group in a particular planned community or developed community that had propane tanks at every property in this large community. And that mothers group started talking about how cool it was to deal online with this propane company. They picked up on this off of their Facebook page. One of the mothers initially posted on their Facebook page, "Hey, thanks for doing that. I'm telling all my friends." the company found out that there was this group that was talking good about them in this particular community. So they connected. They supported this mothers group and supported the causes of this mothers group. I seem to recall that they were putting together, trying to raise some money for a playground in the community for the kids. And this company contributed some money. I think it was on a per gallon basis. They also have a loyalty rate that's tickling that 80% range. And then the third, and this is something that actually I thought about as I was reviewing some of the data for this presentation. Everybody loves their pets. They love their animals. We have one client out there who has their business named for, it was a former family pet. And people have those connections with pets. There isn't any cause related here. There isn't any money going to everyone. The pet is the business's mascot. That company actually has the highest loyalty percentage of any one of our clients. So those emotional connections make a big difference to keeping customers engaged, loyal, and happy. All right, Mark, if you can flip to the next slide. The next one is a question that seems to be pretty easy. How do you measure growth? As I came into this part of the energy industry about 20 years ago, it was pretty natural for me and probably for many of you to think about, well, all right, I'm going to measure my growth in terms of gallons. And many of our clients still do that, but it's not quite as simple as you think. Gallons is certainly one of them. Typically, it's percentage growth in gallons, because this is a growth-oriented business doing it online. Our percentage growth for our entire network over the last 5 years has averaged better than 30% per year. Give you one case study in terms of gallons, though, that this particular company, this is actually a Pennsylvania-based company, been a client for 7 years, and even in the most recent year, continues to grow at better than 50% year over year. Very, very strong growth today, doing better than 2 million gallons worth of online business. And right before Mark did the handoff to me, he talked about the 5 C's. There are actually 2 other C's that I can add to that. One of them is commitment. That's one of the things we look at, or we look for, hopefully, with our clients, is that they have a commitment to this business, because that commitment makes all the difference between kind of doing okay and really doing well. Is if you're committed to the business, if you look at the business, if you manage the business, if you watch your metrics, it's really a pretty easy business to manage, but you need that commitment to do it. And the second C that I would add is consistency. This particular company is also very consistent. Different than traditional thinking in the industry, which is to kind of kick marketing into gear maybe the beginning of September, run it into December, maybe you run it a little bit after the first of the year, but not much. We tell our clients that our data shows that marketing 12 months out of the year not only pays a return on that, but gives you a bigger business at the end of the day. This client markets consistently 12 months per year, may dial it back a little bit during the summer months. But one of the other things that we know across the network is that while 74% of the volume is done during those 12 months from October to the end of March, another 26% is done in what we think of the off season. People are still buying. More importantly, people are still making decisions who to buy from during that period of time. And if you're out there and you're coming up on Google search results those months, when people are thinking about, okay, should I buy from someone else? Is there a better option out there for me, and so forth? They're not as frantic about getting fuel in the middle of summer as they are during the winter. It's a more casual time in terms of making that type of purchase and making those types of changes and decisions. That we find that works well. The other thing that is unique about this customer, I won't say unique because there are a few other of our clients that have done this too, is he always looks at how can I grow more. He works with a marketing firm that helps him to acquire these new customers. And he's gone back to them a number of times that said, okay, we did what we decided to do 3 months ago. It has worked. Can we do more of it? Or is there something new that you've run across that works? I'd like to invest more in this business because it's been a situation where he has consistently invested $1, received $2 back in return. So he says, okay, I'll do that all day long as the business continues to grow that way. So gallon growth is obvious in terms of measuring. The two others, not so much. Customers. About 3 years ago, I got a telephone call from the owner of a business, and he said to me, and he had been on doing e-commerce at that point for 3 or 4 years, and he said, John, I'm losing customers. Something's wrong. And I knew his business was still growing, so that statement didn't make any sense to me. As we dug deeper, what he was really saying was, I'm still acquiring customers every month, and I found out what he was looking at was how many customers he was acquiring that particular month compared to how many customers he acquired that particular month the year before. He kept all of those numbers in front of him. That was his benchmark. That was how he was measuring his growth. And while he was still growing, he was still acquiring new customers. He wasn't acquiring as many customers as he was the year before. So he stated that, like, I'm not growing, I'm losing customers. He's not losing customers. What he was really saying is his competitors maybe were taking customers from him that he felt like he should be getting. So his measure was, how many new customers do I get? We have 2 other companies that I can think about whose managers look at their growth. How do they measure their success? Is how many customers they are acquiring. One of those companies first told me about this. He said, my goal for this season at the time was, he said, my goal for the season is to acquire 1,000 new customers. And he did it. And he consistently does it. The other company, and when he first told me this, I wasn't even paying much attention to this metric at that particular point. He said, hey, he said, I've been growing pretty well. Matter of fact, he was growing real well. And he said, my goal is to acquire 2,000 customers for this calendar year. And I kind of paused when he said that because I didn't know whether or not that was real. I didn't know if any of our clients had done that before. And not many of them do. But he had come pretty close the year prior. And he told me 2,000 for that year. At the end of that year, he did better than 2,000. And matter of fact, in the most recent 12 months, he repeated that performance, targeted based upon customer acquisition. So that's how he measures growth. The last one was honestly one I would have never thought of myself as far as a growth measure. But we also have this client that says, my goal is to have in my e-commerce database 20,000 email addresses. Now, it's not 20,000 customers, okay? He's probably doing business with probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 6,000 or 7,000 customers. But his goal was to have 20,000 email addresses captured within his database that he could remarket to, because he gained an appreciation for saying, if I had those 20,000, he said, I can use those email addresses to send out, to have my marketing person send out email addresses to that group. Some of them are customers, some of them are prospects. They're people that have come and visited, kind of checked me out, but they haven't yet bought, that I can market to them a little bit differently. But I can market to those people, and with that many email addresses, I can continue to grow this business extremely, extremely efficiently. So that's his measure for growth. And he hasn't quite made that 20,000 goal yet, but he may this next year. As a matter of fact, I looked at some of our other clients and where they are, and we now have a group of clients that actually have about double that many email addresses. So it's one of the reasons why we call those, we actually refer to those email addresses as E-List Gold, because they are absolutely that. So, final case study is on the next page. It's this is actually pretty interesting. It's about acquiring a company in order to get new customers. Obviously, something that's been done in the industry for decades. It's tried and true. But what do you do if you're trying to acquire a company, maybe a strategic acquisition even, but you're outbid or the economics just don't work? You know, what are your alternatives? And that was what happened in this particular case. This client was attempting to make an acquisition on the fringe of his territory. It was also strategic in the sense that it had storage, had a bulk plant, so he was able to add another loading area for his fleet on the outskirts of his business. It was also he was doing a little bit of business in that territory, but not too much, and wanted to do more. Anyway, so it looked like a great acquisition. He bid on the acquisition. He bid what he thought was an absolutely fair price, maybe a little bit of a premium because it was not only customers, it was strategic. And he lost the potential acquisition. So what did he do? The first thing he did, quite honestly, was he got mad. Matter of fact, I would say he was pissed. And he and I had a conversation. The acquisition went to an out-of-state company who paid about a 25% premium over what that business would typically be valued. So it seemed pretty ludicrous in terms of the decision by that other company. Not sure their motivation. It was their first entry into that particular state, so maybe they wanted to get a foothold there to build off of. But the second thing our client did was he got smart. He said, "Hey," he said, "I have this e-commerce tool, and it really becomes," and he essentially used it as a powerful high-tech weapon. And he said, "What I'm going to do is I'm going to target that area, and I'm going to acquire those customers as e-commerce customers that this competitor bought." He did just that. He knew the techniques. He worked with a marketing firm, and he specifically targeted the zip codes in that particular potential acquisition service territory. He used a combination of pay-per-click. He went into his eList Gold and sorted it by the zip codes that he already had email addresses for in that area, sent emails to those people, sought referrals from existing customers within those territories, targeted the customers that he wanted to acquire that he previously had tried to buy. He had the tools. He put them to work. Here are the results that he got. And by the way, this case study is on our website, so if you'd like more details and a little bit more of the background and kind of the way that it worked, feel free to go to our website, go to resources and then case studies, and it'll be right there. He acquired, when the case study was written, and you'll see this on the website, he had acquired about a third of the customers that he attempted to acquire by buying the business. Last time I talked to him, he thought that his numbers were now up to about half the customers that he was trying to buy. He acquired himself using e-commerce techniques. But get this, he's also pretty disciplined in terms of his costs. He acquired those customers for $90 per customer. The competitor who bought the business paid $680 per customer to buy that acquisition. So certainly an extremely, extremely favorable acquisition. In that particular case, going out and getting the customers on the open market turned out to be a mere fraction of the cost of what he would have paid to acquire those customers by buying the company. So with that, in summary, Mark, if you flip to the last page, what the case studies tell us in total, and if you think about this, it's the thing that has made us as committed as we are to serving this new will call customer using e-commerce. Because when you look at it from the customer perspective, you have more of them buying online. They not only like to buy online, but they prefer to buy online, as we talked about. They're not the customers that we used to deal with in the old will call world by any means. They want to be loyal. They will be loyal if you treat them well, as we've seen in the case studies. And if you look at it from your side of the business, they cause less disruption in your business. They provide you with better cash flow because in most cases, the money is in the bank before your truck leaves the yard. You've got greater efficiency, which we haven't talked a whole lot about in this particular webinar. But with these customers, compared to handling them by phone, you will save between 10 and 12 cents a gallon. So you have that lower cost to serve, which translates into higher margins for you. And not only that, you know, so you could take all your will call customers or as many of them as wanted to switch, and you can put them online and you get everything that I just talked about. But on top of that, you get growth by bringing new customers into the business as well. So it really becomes a very compelling, you know, reason to engage customers in the marketplace today via e-commerce. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back to Adrian for any Q&A that you might have. And again, thank you for participating this morning.
Okay, great. Thanks, John. As I mentioned earlier, if you have any questions, just go ahead and write them in the chat box on the right. First question, you both mentioned improvements in efficiency. I'm not sure I understand. Where are those cost savings, or where are the cost savings coming from?
Go ahead, John.
Okay, they're improvements in efficiency. The biggest place improvements in efficiency comes from is more gallons delivered per stop. It's somewhere around 37% e-commerce average drop size compared to the industry. In fact, also looking at Greg Randray just the other day, the number for the most recent year was just about 160 gallons per drop for the entire industry. Our e-commerce network is closer to 190 gallons per drop. We actually have some clients that are in excess of 200 gallons per drop. Mark mentioned that Adrian and I have sat on your side of the desk in the past and have built a sizable e-commerce business. In our particular case, that number every year was 204 gallons per drop. That drop size actually equates to about 6 cents of that 10 to 12 cents per gallon that I actually mentioned. So that's certainly a big efficiency improvements. That's the biggest improvement in efficiency. The other cost savings come from within the office. The lack of disruption in the calls that come in, the fewer people that you have to have in the office dealing with the customers, the customer self-serving and so forth. And if anybody's interested in that, just drop a note to Adrian or one of us. Our contact information is on the page that's in front of you. We'll be glad to get you those specifics. But hopefully that answers that attendee's question.
Okay. Seems obvious with online sales, the more you spend on marketing, the better your results will be. Is this true, and how much are your clients spending in their first couple of years?
Mark, you want to take that?
No, it's all you, buddy.
All right. Good question. Generally, the way that the attendee phrased the question is true, but I will caution to say you need to do the right things. Okay, so one of the things, matter of fact, Adrian and I just did one of these sessions yesterday with a new client coming on. We provide our clients with a marketing roadmap because we've done it ourselves. I mean, we've gone through a lot of pain in terms of finding out the things that don't work before we eventually found the things that do work, and then continuing today because there's a lot of sharing that goes on within the Energy Engine community among our clients. We see today the newer things that are working that that make sense. We also, I guess, the best way in terms of cost that I can explain is we have several actually marketing firms that we refer to our clients if they don't already have a firm that they work with. And these companies that we refer have become very good at driving traffic for our clients using digital marketing techniques. One of the largest of those three marketing firms has prepackaged programs that they provide to our clients, and they have two different levels of that program. The first level, I believe, is about $1,800 a month, and the advanced package, I believe, is what they call it, which is typically larger companies, maybe multi-state companies or companies that are doing 5-6 counties types of territory, maybe like $2,500 a month. And then we also have one of the other companies comes in at less than $1,000 a month, but takes a little bit different approach. One of the nice things about e-commerce is it's very targeted if you're doing it right. So your costs will vary. If you have a small territory, it'll be less than if you're doing a large territory. You can also start less aggressively until you get comfortable with that things are working, and build the business a little bit slower. Or if you have a high level of commitment, like some of the case studies that I talked about, where the person just said, I want to build this business as an e-commerce business, and they're kind of all in, they may be more comfortable investing more up front. But you can adjust your spending level to match a budget that meets your objectives, also meets your particular company profile or your company needs.
I will add one quick thing, John. Our 2017 Rookie of the Year, meaning the new customer who outpaced all others and put up extraordinary results, never engaged a marketing firm. I worked with him. He in constant contact, building his E-list goal, doing really smart, consistent marketing. The only thing he did on that site was spend a little money on SEO, but the rest he did himself and put up really great numbers. So while we endorse the use of professional marketing services for e-commerce, it can be done on your own. We see it happen a lot.
Okay, so the next question I think ties right into that, and it's how long does it usually take to reach some of the volumes you're talking about?
Is that me too, Mark?
Yeah, you're the data guy.
So some of the case studies that I mentioned to you were companies that had been clients for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. I just provided those to a company that we hope is going to become a client, and because he was looking to build out a marketing plan. And I have some of these numbers. I think I can recall them pretty darn closely. In the first year, or what we refer to when we publish our metrics to our client base, is companies are new companies. So there are new clients that have been on the engine for less than a year. They came in, they started doing business sometime within the next year. So all of them are less than 12 months. They are typically, the average was about 80,000 gallons in their first year. Then we looked at the group that was 1 to 3 years. At that particular point, that group grew to 600,000 gallons per year. And then we have our greater than 3-year group that starts to go from wherever they are at that 3-year mark. And that group gets, I think it's somewhere about 800, 900,000 gallons, somewhere in that neighborhood. And some of them grow faster, some of them go slower, like I mentioned. This particular company that I provided those numbers to just in the last week was also interested in, when can I pay back this investment that I'm considering making? And we have some companies that accomplish that within their first 12 months. It's more common, though, for the companies to pay it back within the second year. And the caveat that I would use with that is as long as the company is in fact following at least some of the roadmap that we give them. One of the things that doesn't work in this industry is doing dumb stuff. The e-commerce is a very strong tool, as we've seen through this presentation, hopefully, but certainly the case studies. But you still have to run the business with a degree of common sense, because not all of our clients have the types of success that I talked about in this case studies. We have some that fail, but when they do, they fail for very specific reasons. One is you need to get traffic to your site. That's your job. We can't do that for you. You know, we don't. It's your URL. It's your business. It's your look and feel. It's your brand that's on the business. We just work behind the scenes to help you do everything. So it's your business. You need to develop your online store, if you will, and open the doors for business and hang out the sign and let people know that you're open for business. In this particular case, we're talking about letting Google know that you're open for business. And when people search for what you're selling online, your name comes up on the search results, right? So you need to drive the traffic to your business. That's the first point of failure, is if that client does not drive traffic to the business. The other reason why we've seen some failures is people just do dumb stuff. They say, all right, I got this e-commerce business. That makes it much more convenient, so these customers will pay more for the fuel. So they priced, this actually happened, we're going to go 25% above the competition, or not 25%, 25 cents a gallon higher than comparable prices in the market. Crazy, it doesn't work. You have to be competitive in terms of pricing. You don't have to be the lowest, but, making silly mistakes, like that, won't work and won't pay back that investment. But, those that at least follow the guidelines, to some extent anyway, and, we've got a whole lot more that have a whole lot of growth as opposed to those that don't do as well.
Okay, so that was the last question. So I'd like to thank you, Mark and John, for all the great information you gave us today. And I'd also like to thank the attendees for sticking it out with us. So we apologize we went a little over on time, but all good information. So with that, I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend.
Thanks, everyone.